Video games have taken over the world and today make up a $120 billion industry. Video games are more than just a booming entertainment business. It's become a lifestyle. They have reshaped how we connect with the world and impacted our culture more than you know. People were gaming for longer than you think. What's brought us video games is the advancement of technology. Video games were born out of innovation, creativity, and necessity. Early visionaries created simple programs that soon became these memorizing worlds in and of themselves. People have always played games, even before video games were created. We raced, we hunted, or at least pretended to. Games brought us together. They taught us how we think alike, or maybe differently. We were playing chess hundreds of years ago. The earliest board games date back to 3100 BC. We have invented thousands of games, and the fact is that we have always been playing games. No matter who you are, where you are from, or the time period you were born, you have played some sort of game in your lifetime. Times have changed and are still changing. With that, gaming has changed. Gaming has evolved from more than a way of growing up, more than a way to be social. It's become a way of life. This is a story of video games and how they have impacted our lives. Though video games nowadays are thought of as home entertainment, they actually got their start in labs to test artificial intelligence. In 1952, a professor by the name of Douglas created noughts and crosses, which was basically tic-tac-toe as part of a thesis on human-computer interaction. 10 years later, the first ever purpose-built computer game was created by Steve Russell at MIT. It was called Space War and simulated space combat. Because it was built for the PDP-1, a computer found at most universities, it could be played on multiple installations. Later, in 1967, the home console was born. It was first known as the Brown Box, but was soon licensed and sold as the Odyssey to consumers. Ultimately, its popularity fizzled out, and Atari's Pong was released the same year and made arcade gaming popular. 3 years later, a home version was released. 150,000 units were sold alone by Atari in 1975. The next generation of video game consoles came between 1976 and 1983. Units such as the Atari 2600, Intellivision, and ColecoVision featured interchangeable cartridges that were sold separately rather than preloaded games. With the variety of games to choose from, users were able to create their own library of games. Ironically, this surplus of games led to the video game crash of the early 1980s. The problem was quality, not quantity. The market was flooded with games of poor quality and too many consoles to choose from. Computers became a competitor to home consoles. The new age of computers were far more versatile than the last and could run games in addition to a plethora of other programs. The computer seemed like a more logical investment than a console devoted only to gaming. Arcades remained popular with hits such as Space Invaders in 1978 and Pac-Man in 1980, but the home console era seemed to come to an end. However, a Japanese company called Nintendo came to the rescue in 1985 with the release of its Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES. Its popularity skyrocketed and surpassed its previous predecessors. This new system brought improved graphics, colors, sound, and most importantly, gameplay. Video game franchises such as The Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Bros. Were introduced, which are still popular today. In 1989, Nintendo struck gold again and popularized handheld gaming. The Game Boy was released with a tiny 2.6-inch gray screen and an addicting game called Tetris. That same year, Sega released its Genesis console, which struggled to hold its weight against the NES. However, with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog in 1991, the Genesis could stand on its own. Nintendo hit back and released the Super NES, which began the very first console war. Both consoles released new franchises during the early to mid-90s, including Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. As a result of these violent video games, the Entertainment Software Rating Board was created to rate games based on content. As computer technology advanced, new 32-bit consoles were released, which allowed for the three-dimensional era of gaming. In 1995, Sega released its Saturn system, which upgraded from cartridges to CDs. Sony finally decided to step its toes into the water and launch its first console, the PlayStation. Nintendo also followed up and released the 64-bit Nintendo 64. PlayStation was able to secure exclusive titles and dominated the market, continuing into the next generation. In 2000, the PlayStation 2 was released and became the best-selling console of all time, going up against Microsoft's Xbox and Nintendo's GameCube. The modern age of gaming that kids today are probably more familiar with kicked off in 2005 and 2006 with the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii. These consoles soon offered a new way to play video games with motion capture systems such as the Microsoft Kinect and Wii motion-sensitive remotes. The end of the decade had games reaching a more casual audience with mobile devices like the iPhone and platforms like Facebook. Our current generation of video games began with the release of the Wii U, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. However, the Wii U failed and was discontinued in 2017. Despite Nintendo's Wii U failure, they released the Nintendo Switch, which was the first of its kind to offer both handheld and television-based gaming. Meanwhile, Microsoft and PlayStation continued to revamp their consoles with more powerful versions, including the PlayStation 4 Pro, Xbox One S, and X. In the midst of all these console wars, PC gaming was doing its own thing and is actually the home of many gaming innovations. One of many is the Oregon Trail, which was first released in 1971. This game was a pioneer for educational games to come. In 1989, SimCity released, the first of the Simline games in city builder genre. It offered a casual gaming experience without the high score and final boss. 3 years later, the FPS genre was invented with the release of Wolfenstein 3D. It offered a new perspective, seeing the action through the eyes of the protagonist. A year later, hands down, the most influential PC game ever made was Doom. It was made by the same studio as Wolfenstein 3D, but popularized the first-person shooter genre. In 1998, Valve Corporation gave us Half-Life. It was more than just a mindless FPS. It featured puzzles, storytelling like no other, and an emphasis on the environment of the game. You can also thank PC gaming for the online multiplayer format. Quake popularized the online deathmatch by allowing players to connect to a server via a list rather than hunting for IP addresses. In 2000, Valve came out with another hit game called Counter-Strike. It was a military realism FPS consisting of 2 teams and objectives. It sold millions of copies and became one of the greatest competitive multiplayer shooters made. Valve didn't stop there, and in 2003 introduced the online Steam platform. It changed the way people bought and played PC games. It's now a hub where you can buy, play, create, and discuss games. As of 2017, it had over 67 million monthly users, 10,000 plus games, and over 400 million pieces of user-generated content. Blizzard Entertainment was also able to attract the masses with their 2004 release of World of Warcraft. It redefined the MMO genre and gave the masses a proper RPG. This game consumed millions and millions of people's free time, allowing them to participate in an online social phenomenon. Another groundbreaking PC game is Minecraft, which was released in 2011. It's an open-world sandbox game for all ages, with an infinite number of possibilities, and is now the best-selling game of all time. The PC also powered virtual reality gaming, allowing the player to step into the game. In 2012, a Kickstarter campaign started for the Oculus Rift, a VR headset for video games. $2.4 million was raised. This caught the eye of Facebook, which later bought the company for $2 billion. Since then, Sony, Google, Samsung, HTC, and many more companies have developed their own VR headsets. With that, the gaming experience continues to progress and become more immersive. But why does gaming history matter? Video games created a culture which has seeped into other forms of media, affecting mainstream culture. As arcades and home consoles became popular, the youth culture swiftly flocked to this type of media, competing for high scores. Kids were progressively identifying with the characters and game-related products. Saturday morning cartoons were influenced by these games, and merchandise was sold with video game brands and characters. Some have even become cultural icons. Other businesses recognized the video game craze, which resulted in arcade machines emerging in bowling alleys, shopping malls, restaurants, and bars around the world. The TV industry was influenced by gaming culture and adopted TV shows based on popular games such as Pac-Man, Super Mario Bros., and The Legend of Zelda. Pokemon was also a huge hit during the 1990s and received its own TV series as well as a card game. Gaming culture also affected the film industry. Video games got their own film adaptations, which produced millions at the box office. In 1995, Mortal Kombat earned over $70 million. Another lucrative movie was Lara Croft Tomb Raider, released in 2001, starring the famous actress Angelina Jolie. It was ranked number 1 at the box office at its time of release. Since then, more video games have earned their own movies and franchises, including Doom, Angry Birds, Resident Evil, Pokemon, and most recently, Sonic the Hedgehog. Not only have video games been adapted into movies, but movies have also been adapted into video games, recognizing the possibilities of the gaming market. Video games have also found their way into education. As early as the 1980s, games were created to help children on their basic math and grammar skills. In 2006, a study was done by the Federation of American Scientists approving of the use of video games in education. The study also showed that students preferred learning through video games, and in fact, the games furthered analytical skills. One game that has become popular in the classroom is Minecraft. A special edition of Minecraft specifically for education is being used by educators in more than 115 countries. It has immersive STEM learning, creativity, and innovation. But now this poses the question, how has gaming become mainstream? It was once known just as something teenage boys or loners in their parents' basements played, but that's not the case anymore. Gamers have become celebrities, earning even more than some pro athletes. The media used to blame video games for all the troubles in society. Some networks still do, but more have embraced the industry. Some even have programs dedicated to gaming, such as CBS, ESPN, and TNT. TV show hosts have even invited popular names in the gaming community to their show, such as Ellen and Jimmy Fallon. Actual news channels have even reported on the gaming industry. The gaming industry has proved that it is as legitimate as the music or sport industry. Careers have been made from becoming a gaming influencer on the platforms of Twitch and YouTube or competing in esports. YouTube helped the gaming community grow. It allowed people to upload their own content or watch others. No one thought YouTube would get as big as it did. They simply did it for their own pleasure or enjoyment, whether that be uploading gameplay or watching tutorials by others. People got creative with video games, and channels like Machinima were born, where animated films and series were created by recording in-game character actions. Some people looked beyond just a video game and created their own content out of it. Streaming services like Twitch.tv, which actually was first called Justing.tv, introduced a new experience of watching your favorite personalities play video games live, where you can interact with them via chat. Platforms like these now host esport tournaments. Esports is like the NBA or NFL for video games. There are various esport leagues and franchises across North America, Europe, and Asia. Millions of people watch players showcase their gaming skills online or live, competing for a large cash prize. Dota 2 ranks number 1 with the largest prize pool, handing out a total of more than $219 million in tournament prizes. Among others are CSGO with $87.1 million, Fortnite with $84.4 million, League of Legends with $73 million, and StarCraft 2 with $32.1 million. There are plenty more, but these are just the top 5. Colleges even have esport programs with varsity teams and major gaming franchises. Not only do they have teams, but they have degrees. Students can earn bachelor's and master's degrees by learning marketing and management skills geared towards the gaming industry. Just over 2 decades ago, gaming was only a pastime and for the unemployed. It's grown into a huge industry, making billions of dollars in careers out of people. Overall, gaming has become a cultural phenomenon and is projected to continue to impact the lives of billions for years to come.